All right, it's some 12 minutes past 7, and this morning we want to get into the, what is it called? The thick of thin things. Of the thick of thin things. What is it?
Thick of things.
Okay. What she said. We'll get together with that. But this morning, we're going to discuss matters referendum. To have the referendum or not to have. What are the issues, that are being presented? Do you have any questions? Do you have any thoughts about this? You can always tweet us at KTN Kenya, at James Smart, at Joy during Build-Up. But most importantly, you can also text us, and we'll be giving you our numbers shortly for you to make your phone calls. But to help us get into this discussion, to discuss this, is none other than the party leader of PDP, James Omingo Magara.
Thank you.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana, James.
And Ndugu Norman Magaya, who's the head code secretariat.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, welcome to our studios.
Thank you.
Let me start with you, Magaya. Because this is Code's call, why are we having a referendum? Why are we even proposing a referendum?
The quest for referendum has emerged out of a very protracted process. Remember, we had set the stage from the 31st of May when we said that there are serious issues facing this nation, and we called for a national dialogue. And throughout the month of June, we held consultative rallies with Kenyans to be able to coalesce the issues that were bedeviling this nation. And we placed a persistent call to the Jubilee administration that let us sit on a table and find a way forward on some of these things. Nothing came out of that process. We were given a blind eye, and we decided on Sabasaba that it was now time for action. And part of the action points that we proposed was the formation of the National Referendum Committee to spearhead the process of conducting a national referendum to fix some of the outstanding issues that we feel Kenyans need to have direct participation in putting together the solutions to the issues that are facing them. And that's where we are now. And we will be taking quite a number of issues to the referendum, around 3 to 4 issues that we will want Kenyans to make a decision on to fix the governance issues in this country.
Okay, we'll get to those issues. Omingo Magara,
yes.
Do you feel indifferent or we should have a referendum?
Quite honestly, and without fear of contradiction, there are monumental issues to be addressed in this Republic of Kenya. Unless we want to be pretentious, we need to engage. My concern, and every Kenyan's concern, is a strategy of engagement, involvement, and these issues are fairly not new. They have been here with us. We needed to get back and get a step back and say, where do we want to go? My brother said they consulted from 31st of June. Indeed, yes. As PDP, we also have a position to state, in this case, that we want to be able to engage Kenyans on matters of security, cost of living, indeed, fundamental issues. My biggest problem is how do we do it without necessarily even ripping out or tearing down the gains we have had, because some of the proposals that are being made also border on the constitutional changes, which is a constitution that is about 2-3 years down the line. And you don't know who is going to get into his hand in this pocket of the constitution. It may even erode all the gains you've had because people have had to re-examine themselves. Those ones who can withdraw syndromes will even tear down what we have. My question and my issue is how and why do we do the way we did it? Because you don't talk to yourselves. And by the way, James, if you give me a dialogue conditionally, generally I withdraw syndrome. And that's exactly what we're seeing, grandstanding. That if we put that back, we can move this country. And all of us are concerned about this country positively.
Right. I'll just take it back to Norman, and I would like to find out from you, from your perspective, knowing that you're coming from a CORD, is there a way that the challenges Kenyans are facing can be solved without a referendum?
We provided that opportunity. We said, let's have a platform where we can sit together as citizens of this country through our leadership to resolve the issues that are facing Kenyans. But the Jubilee coalition treated that call with a lot of grandstanding, with a lot of disrespect, dismissed them outrightly, insisted that we could only do so through existing structures. And we told them that when these issues started, the Senate was there, the National Assembly was there. Certainly it's not a forum. Actually, our leaders have been on record stating that the two houses actually are part of the problem, because we no longer have parliamentarians who stand in public interest. What we have are people chasing selfish interests. And so we need to have to rise above the partisan interest in parliament and provide a forum that will be able to objectively discuss the issues that are facing Kenyans and arrive at a solution. And it is not true to say that people are not invited to come and give contributions on the quest for dialogue. When we said we wanted dialogue, we didn't say we wanted the dialogue between CORD and Jubilee. We said we wanted a national dialogue that will bring together different players. My brother Omingo Magara included with his PDP political party, because we have utmost respect for all political players, for all civic players, for all religious players, for all civil society players in this country. And all of them will have brought in a different dimension on how we are supposed to resolve the national issues. But even that chapter has not closed. On Sabasaba, we launched the Okoa Kenya movement. Under the auspices of the Okoa Kenya movement, we are saying, if you agree that there are issues that need to be resolved, then you are a member. Come. A forum is going to be launched sometimes this week.
So Mingo is a member of the
yes, actually, by default, he has already subscribed, and I will welcome him to the platform so that we can engage.
I am talking to Kenyans from the bottom of my heart.
Yes.
I am concerned about this issue in this republic. But it is not about Jubilee and CORD, for instance. They are major players in this game. The civil society that was prior to active in terms of giving us the changes we've had have not been consulted. The church, I mean, we all go to churches. In fact, we either belong to Muslim or Catholic, or Christian. There we are. We are seeing it. And how do you say I was consulted, or anybody else was consulted, when we are seeing ultimatums on one day? And indeed, I believe you can even see, even within the CORD itself, they have not consulted widely. That is why, I do appreciate the fact that there's internet connectivity and the party leader was away. So I'm imagining they could have consulted with the internet. But dialogue does not mean social media. Mm-hmm. I expected when they came, they would have sat back, call every one of us on board with a wonderful idea and say, yes, this country is ailing. For sure, Mpeketon is not an issue we can all laugh at, and I really feel sorry about this country. Mm-hmm. But when it happened in America, they said, our political differences aside, let us now address the issues. Here, what were we saying? You are failed. I am better. I can do it better. It's not right. We cannot do grandstanding, finger pointing to a situation that affects all of us collectively. My concern is the strategy. And even then, we'll talk about the referendum. Who is funding it now? Look at the cost of living today. Where are we going to tax Kenyans more to do a referendum? Mm-hmm. You are doing a referendum with a body that is not within the constitution. The members of CORD themselves are saying we are unable to deliver the mandate given to us constitutionally in Parliament. It's a shame. I find it completely disgusting. But what are we saying? Let us tone down our differences. Stop grandstanding. Come a step lower, and we can solve these issues. They are appreciable by everybody else who is concerned about us, our well-being, and the only way we can do it is to actually stretch a hand of brotherhood for the sake of Kenya.
All right, we're interested to hear what you say on Twitter at KTN Kenya, at James Smart, at Joy Dorenbira, and of course, shortly we'll be putting our numbers right on the screen, and you can also text us on 22155 or 156, mm-hmm. And we'll have our numbers and want to hear what your thoughts. Are you interested in referendum? Do you think you have any other way to solve these issues? What are your thoughts? Where are you in this particular conversation?
All right. Now let's break down some of the avenues under which we can even have a constitution, a referendum in this case. And if we are even going to look through those avenues, do we see this happening in this day and age, when we're having a government that has only been in power for just a little over a year?
One is the question as to whether we will have a referendum is a foregone conclusion. We have made a resolve. We are putting all measures in place, and it will interest everyone to know that actually since we made the announcement on the call for the referendum, we have received quite significant backing, not just from the CORD coalition, but even from the Jubilee coalition. We have received quite significant support. And as I've said, this week a roadmap will be provided on exactly how we want to engage on the question of referendum. The Constitution provides for a referendum through a popular initiative that a Constitution can be amended. And I want to believe that the only way you can erode the gains enshrined in the Constitution by way of amendment is through a parliamentary initiative. But where you are subjecting the document to the entire Kenyan citizenship, I mean, there is no way Kenyans will be able to vote on an issue that seeks to erode the gains they have made. That was only able to be undertaken through parliamentary processes in the past. But we are putting issues on the table, we are putting them out for scrutiny, and eventually when our committee of experts drafts the referendum questions in the course of next week, it will be put out for public discourse, and Kenyans will be able to debate and decide which way they want this country to go. And so we really do not think that that having a referendum is not the best option to go. There is a language that the Jubilee administration understands. We came together when Westgate happened. We said, everything aside, this is a matter of national security. Let's face it. But what happened? At the end of the process, they said, we are setting up a commission of inquiry to get to the bottom of Westgate. Today, we are asking, where is even a single body of the terrorists that you killed at Westgate? We have not been shown any. And so, we are dealing with a regime that is totally irresponsive to the issues facing Kenyans. And as we declared on the Sabasaba Day, that on issues where we can take positive action without necessarily begging government for action, we will be able to take it. And the referendum is one of the routes that we are taking. The question of funding for the referendum, Jubilee has spent on everything, clearly indicating to us that yes, there is money to do things that will make Kenya better. A referendum is one of the objects enshrined in the Constitution. And so we are not importing a process that is not contemplated in the Constitution. And it was not put there for ornamental purposes. It's put there so that Kenyans, when they feel that there are issues that must be fixed through such a process, will be able to revert to it and fix it. And so, through that referendum, we'll be able to fix quite a number of issues. And if you look at our national systems today, you look at the legislature, you look at the Senate and the Parliament, and the structure of the county governments, you will agree with me that it may not be viable in some extreme cases to go through those forums as a way of addressing the issues that are facing Kenyans. But does it therefore mean that as a Kenyan, you have no right to participate in national development by proposing and putting forward solutions that will be able to make this question better, that you can only do so through the established constitutional institution? That is not the case. Even the Constitution itself clearly indicates that you may do so through your democratically elected representatives, but where matters come to a halt, you can exercise your sovereignty directly. And there is no better way for Kenyans to exercise their sovereignty than through a national referendum.
Yes.
Allow me to interject. Seriously, it's not in doubt that Kenyans feel the pain and pinch of what is happening today. It is not in doubt that CORD is determined and they have a following. Granted. But should we be Kenyans who respect the institutions that we created in this constitution that we're talking about, that was fought for by everybody else? In fact, we even rallied our supporters today and told them, you know, katiba ni sasa, kama si sasa ni sasa hivi. We know there are issues, we can address them as we unpacking this. We are trying it and trying to test it today. Devolution is supposed to work, and I cry to Kenyans that that is the only way we must go to give people a development down there. Now, if you start by casting aspersions on the IEBC, and indeed, your mother's cooked food could be as stale as it could be, you are enjoying the same food and saying, my mother is hopeless. Please resign from that seat and then give Kenyans a hope that indeed there was a flawed process. I don't want to be a partaker. Then therefore, let them be shipped aside. Point number one. Number two, you are saying they must exit. Constitutionally, they're supposed to conduct that referendum. There is no something else to take us back into it. You are saying we are so incompetent, in which case we cannot seek other people's support. And when we're saying sovereignty is with us. Thirdly, we are talking about a parliament, and they actually confess in public that we are unable to do it. I mean, it's hurting even the people who elected those people, members in parliament. The best thing I would have expected is to step back and say, particularly on that issue of IEBC, I don't care about the nonsense of this thing. I am putting down my tools. I want to go back for fresh election with a fresh mandate, with a fresh IEBC. It is not happening. What could you call that? Pretentious business. What I'm saying, we feel it, we are pained, we want to participate, not the same way we're doing it. And let me say this. If you want your right to be respected, please respect others' rights. Because, James, my right starts where yours end. Nobody has got absolute right. And therefore, respect other Kenyans. And I'm saying, this country is fairly polarized. We almost split down the middle. Any issue of agitation will pain us even more. We have friends and relatives who have actually left jobs whom we are feeding today. It doesn't make it better tomorrow by actually going to the streets. And remember, we fought in the streets. Some of us have got no arms. We have been chopped. Courtesy of fighting for liberation. We have conformists, of course. And some people I see sometimes speaking on air, I feel sympathetic about them because they are the shadow of the same status quo of the past. That's beside us. We have it all here. Can we then pack it well? This is a situation where you can tell the president to reverse his decision. It has happened before. What can this parliament do? We have seen them do things. Now, if you can say again that the people you've elected through your tickets are incompetent, I find it not acceptable in Kenyan system today.
Right. And I'll get to a tweet here. Bernard Opio Ogan is saying referendum has been necessary right from promulgation because both yes and no camps agreed that 20% of it was not that good. What do you have to say about that?
No, agreed. Let me say this. We are actually at the testing of the pudding. I mean, the appetizer is on today. It is positive that there are things that need to be changed. But can I tell you the risk? Some who have been pained by these liberties that we have attained will take this slightest opportunity to rape this constitution to the negative thing that we almost feared. And don't forget, they are still existing. The enemies of devolution are here. Give them a window, they'll drive away, you can't believe it. So I think it's not the right time. I was praying that we give this constitution and devolution a chance to at least Kenyans to test what it is. Believe you me, if we went about it, you've had people saying women are just a waste of time. Remember, affirmative action has been an issue. If you open that window, then you don't restrict other Kenyans what rights they want to put in there. Several questions will come. Do we have women reps? They'll be struck off. What are we saying? Negating the gains. Devolution is a waste of time, too much wastage, too many governments, are costly to a government. It will be dropped out. And I can tell you, we open up a window to be a Pandora's box. God should rethink that position, both for themselves and for posterity. Remember also, when this government has failed as it is in this constitution, half of the governance of this country has failed because governors are sitting in office today, courtesy of this election process. I'm saying, as we think through a way forward, we must not look at it today for posterity for the nation.
Norman, you're not afraid that this process might be hijacked?
Let me first start by pointing out that a constitution is not a lifeless piece in a museum. It is a living document, and life must be breathed into it from time to time. And so a constitution amendment can be made on day one, immediately after promulgation. It may be made 100 years down the line. What is important is the object of the amendment that is being sought. And so there should never be fear. If something is bad in a constitution, it doesn't matter how much you stand up to it. It doesn't matter how much you can persevere on a bad provision in a constitution. But what is more worrying is that we have in power two people. One who opposed this constitution, another one who half-heartedly supported this constitution. And we have seen systematic processes to bastardize this constitution that have been undertaken under their watch. Just a week ago, the president arrogated himself the sole power to vet nominees that had come out of the Judicial Service Commission, a power that is not contemplated anywhere in the constitution. But is there fear that the process could be hijacked by any forces? We have put our act together, an attempt to try and deviate from the issues that we are going to put on the table will be strongly resisted, and we can assure you that this process will remain firmly on course. We have competent people that have come together to shepherd this process, and when eventually the list is made public of the people that have come together to engage in this process, Kenyans will have no doubt that we are engaging in a process that is credible, in a process that has clear direction, and a process that will lead us to greater prosperity. But I want to point out one thing to my brother Omingo here, that he is talking passionately about these issues, but we have not seen him come out with the same bravado to advance his position and say that these are the issues facing Kenyans. Let's engage different. Let's engage different. Until this interview, I had not seen Mr. Omingo Magara, Honorable Omingo Magara, come out strongly to advocate for the things he's advocating for now. But it will also interest us to know that he entered into some sort of arrangement with the Jubilee administration, and perhaps he could have influenced the manner in which they govern this process through this memorandum of understanding. And so the mere fact that today, James, let me just finish.
I seek your protection, because that is mudslinging, and we don't need to address personalities here. I am talking as a Kenyan. I have never seen him, actually he's a very young gentleman in politics. I've not seen him talk about anything else in this country except until court. So if we want to attack each other, it does not make sense. Let us address issues that are affecting Kenyans. Whether I started yesterday or today, I have my space. And not James. With tremendous respect for my brother, you're not going to say court is going to present a referendum question that excludes him. Any other Kenyan can put it in under Bill of Rights. In which case you don't say it will be an infiltration because somebody else has brought it. I am only suggesting that it is a risky thing to get into now in a porous position. Governors have not even settled down. Today as we speak, county assemblies have now been stifled of resources to a point where they cannot even do oversight functions. To an extent, therefore, that if they don't do oversight functions, the people will be demoralized about service not getting them, and if you put a referendum question to that extent, it can be thrown out. It's the risks and the timing. And I'm saying, please, I stand corrected. I am not resisting any change. Remember, we are the same ones who said, let us try it first and move on. But before we even try it, we're changing it. Granted, let's move on. But I can tell you, we're opening a can of worms. Trust me.
Okay, so just before you get in, Joy, I want to find out from Mr. Omingo, when do you think these issues that are many and are serious, when is the right time for us to focus and say, clearly the problem we have today is that this system is not working. How do we change it? When do we change it?
James, the problems that we're addressing here, the 13 points I've read in this document here, they are now to be discussed. Not through a referendum. Please, for heaven's sake. They can be dealt with today. We have systems in place. Unless we want to say, therefore, that we made mistakes wholesome, Parliament is a nullity, Senate is a nullity, including those ones speaking out there.
Give me a solution for IBC, for instance. From where code sits, say IBC, we don't want IBC, we can't, deal with it. In fact, if there's going to be a referendum, we want someone else to do it. Jubilee, from where they sit, they say, you know what, IBC is not a point of discussion. Give me a solution for that.
The solution is this. This assembly here, there is a process provided in the Constitution of removing IBC. Unless we want to suspend our Constitution, give me another way. Let us suspend our Constitution as if it's a crisis, then do it differently. There's a provision in the law. We don't have to import it. And if we respect those institutions, please respect them. And my answer is, there are provisions of doing it. Unless we're saying it will be anarchy. Now, if you say it must go, tomorrow somebody will say, I don't like governance. We want revolution to go. And it will go because we're following due process within the provision of the Constitution, because the Constitution is envisaged on how to undo issues. Unless you want to do it otherwise than this, again, you are opening a Pandora's box. Anybody else will do it. We have provision in here. Put our act together. Let us manage ourselves. You know why members of Parliament are shy about it? They are beneficiaries of this thing. And that's why, don't even talk about numbers. It is the kind of a weak point where they stand. You cannot challenge a person who has given you food you are eating today. So really, the provisions cannot be pegged on issue of worrying of numbers. It is the issue of where the compromise, where they are, they cannot do it. But we must respect the rule of law, provisional constitution, provisional law is the Constitution, and that's the only way we can know we fought for it, we got it, we nurtured it, and respect it as is.
Right. Norman, the three core principles did play a role, in coming up with the Constitution, and of course during the promulgation of the Constitution in 2010, and they were key players, towards this day. Do you think that now is the right time? Because what most Kenyans are perceiving out of this is that it's a mind game. Because if you're looking at three principles who took or played a role in its promulgation, why is it that we're seeing the same three principles still against the Constitution, or now trying to make changes in the Constitution?
First of all, we are dealing with the three core principles that are the greatest proponents of the current constitutional dispensation.
Yes.
So it is not true to say that they are against the Constitution.
But they need to make some changes.
But having said that, if you understand the document that is the Constitution, then it becomes very easy for you to know when that document is working and when that document needs to be improved. And we are saying that the stage where we are, the Constitution itself envisages that on certain matters it may be important to hold a national referendum. And so we are not playing outside the law. When you insist that we must obey the rule of law, we are clearly obeying the rule of law by undertaking a process that is contemplated in the Constitution. So we are not going outside what is provided for in the Constitution. I will give an example of IEBC. The process provided in the Constitution is through a parliamentary petition. A parliamentary petition is already in Parliament. The Parliamentary Committee on Legal Affairs is considering it. But if you look at the events emanating from the proceedings of that committee yesterday, it will tell you that clearly you have an organ that is incapable of discharging the mandate that is contemplated in the Constitution. And the Constitution does not provide one avenue for fixing that. Secondly, even if you are to undertake that process and reconstitute afresh, you are likely to arrive at the same conclusion. And the idea here is, in Kenya, there are no neutrals. Everyone has a political affiliation. We just must live up to it. So pretending that we will have a group of 9 men and women of this country that will sit together and act as neutrals to shepherd the political process, it will be to deceive ourselves. And this has been done in other countries. It has been done in Mexico. It has been done in other democracies, where even in this country we did it under the IPPG deal in 1997, where we said that let political parties nominate commissioners to the electoral body depending on their strength in parliament. Okay? So that then you can, once you have constituted that electoral commission, you will have people who will counter-check each other and deliver a process that is credible. But most significantly, as constituted in law today, you have a process, you have institutions that are highly compromised. Already, one part of the political divide has owned up that organ. Actually, when we were pushing for dialogue, we said, let's dialogue on how to fix the electoral system. And they said, we can engage on cost of living, we can engage on security, we can engage on another matter, but we will not engage on IEBC. No. So it is their organ. Let me have my time. Yeah. It is their organ that they have owned it, and you cannot change it. The third thing that I must point out is that the signatures will be predicated, the signatures to be collected will be predicated on presented questions. We are not collecting signatures in isolation of the questions that will go to the referendum. Right. Kenyans must know these are the questions, and you make an endorsement by signing. So you are not simply going to sign before you see the questions. And we will insist that if another person wants to introduce another question, let him also put it there so that Kenyans can also give their signature on the understanding that they already know what question that is being proposed. Oh, yeah. But when you say that it's the right in the Constitution for anybody to propose a question, what you are saying is that signatures will be collected. Once you have the 1 million signatures, then anybody can bring up any question. That is not the way to go about it. The form to collect signatures must encompass the questions that you want Kenyans to address themselves.
Okay. James, right. Just a quick one. I have been a member of parliament about 10 years. I don't, with tremendous respect again, it is not right to cast aspersions on the competence of members of parliament elected. Really. My brother Magaya winning an election is like chips in the cafeteria. It's a serious business. That you can say that already you can prejudice the scene in the members of parliament. Again, that is what is costing CORD not to face the assembly because of the contemptuous thing about the assembly. It is not fair. These are people's mandated elected leadership. So when you say that the results they are giving are compromised already, you actually casting aspersions. Again, let me tell you, it's not
but
even
James,
about. Let me finish my time.
Just a minute. The president was on record saying
me,
that the parliament is a corrupt parliament when they cancelled the security tender. The president of the Republic of Kenya.
Allow me to say this. Now, you don't then, two wrongs don't make a right. So you also wanted to copy what the president said. I mean, you should be better. It's not a better pedestal then and correct them. What I'm saying, it is not fair that you can cast aspersions on, you're not talking about now that parliament is just parliament. It's a constitutional body. Respect them as it
Gentlemen,
was.
I must pick a phone call before we continue this discussion. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning, sir.
How are you, Virginia?
Fine, thank you. Sorry for keeping you
my
on
name is
hold.
Macharia.
Yes, Macharia.
I'm calling from Mombasa.
Yes.
And I'm listening to your healthy discussion on this.
Yes, what's your contribution?
And I would want to point out this. When you listen to the two gentlemen on studio, they are actually pinpointing some certain issues that are fundamental to this country. And one of the things is that we have institutions, and these institutions are actually the ones that are mandated to carry out the things that they are talking about.
Yes.
But the problem comes in here, and that's why I support Honorable Omingo Magara, because he's saying CORD is actually not respecting the institution. Here is just a matter of respect and honoring the institutions, because if you have been following the CORD's argument and whatever they have been saying of late, it is actually expressed very well. If you listen to what Mr. James Orengo talks about, Mr. Anyang'o and Mr. Tom Kajwang, they are talking about a regime change, which is actually hidden in what they are calling the referendum. So let people not confuse about a referendum for a regime change, because CORD is actually going for a regime change. Thank you very much.
All right, Mashaya from Mombasa. Thank you very much. We're making, just to, if you pick out, from that and making the assumptions that we're getting from the public. Just before I get this, let me get to the next one before I bring this. Kenneth, good morning.
Morning.
Morning, sir. How are you?
How are you, James?
Fine, thank you, sir. What's your contribution this morning?
I'd like to thank you for the discussion today.
Yes, sir.
And especially the two discussants that are there with you. Say hi to Joyce.
Yes.
My question is, when all this is happening, because this is not just the first debate that we have concerning what Kenyans feel. I think every time there's a discussion, there has been a group of people who are forgotten. And this group are the silent Kenyans, the middle class, who are always hustling up and down with maybe their wives in one part of the country, and they have to really make ends meet. They are neither poor nor rich. So I remember when this push for referendum and other issues started heating up in this country, and by defect I belong to one side of the divide, and I'm very sure that the country is also divided right in the middle. So I just tried to put a point across that during these discussions, it's important first to think of the middle class. These are people who are hardworking, and there seems to be a sort of advantage taken by the political elite at the top, who keep on inciting those who are right below in slums and all that. So it's very important to, during this time for whether it's a referendum push or not, that the two leaders, especially our beloved president and the leader of opposition, try to think around really what it is in terms of, interfering with the economy that is pushed by the middle class during their interaction. We need one Kenya, and actually we need them to show us that we are one.
Okay.
It should start from the top.
Yes.
And the bottom should be influenced as well. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll get to another round of phone calls. But gentlemen, let me throw this, to the floor. Is it possible, for us to have discuss our issues that are both serious and many, and discuss them openly and freely, without the security or anyone feeling threatened, and discuss these issues, without us, pulling ranks. Is it possible for us to do that?
It is extremely possible, James. Remember, let me start from the background. When the former Prime Minister wanted to meet Uhuru, we never knew they met. We only saw cameras in State House. And I'm sure there is a window they could have done that before Kenyans are whipped to think differently. And note also, James, that it is critical that we raise our standards to nationhood other than my benefit for now. What am I saying? It is important that we sit as a nation to look at each other eyeball to eyeball. But remember also, we are human beings. James, if I come to your house and tell you, I don't think you're managing your home well, or I will show you how it's done, I will definitely develop what we call a withdrawal syndrome. That's what's happening today. I am saying, I'm appealing to His Excellency the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, and William Ruto, and my brother, and brothers in the court coalition, to tone down these temperatures. For the sake of our brothers and sisters who are suffering in Mombasa, courtesy of the insecurity and the tourism sector is collapsing, if we mean well for them. And I can say this, it is possible, it's doable. They have tried that before. When they met first, James, I'm sure you actually called they're coming. And they shared a cup of tea with the president. They talked about the retirement benefit and the security which they require at that time. They could still do it. There's a window. And I believe also, the Bible says, taifa lisilo na mashauri huanguka. We must consult continuously. What am I saying? Grandstanding, selfishness, don't take us anywhere. And I'm saying this because I campaigned under CORD. I have nothing ill about them. After elections, I did change my course, which is my democratic right to do so. So when my brother was raising issues, I said, I am a Kenyan, and I believe this is where I belong, and I mean well for this nation. And the Kenyans who are watching us, including the middle class, they're pained because some of them even migrated when this Sabbath thing came. People, you saw them moving from Naivasha. It is not decent that you find maybe someone from Naivasha is shipped to Nyanza, and they find somebody from another community doing business in Nyanza. There is animosity that's going to be crippled and to creep in. I am suggesting it's possible, it can be done. It's not our leadership must tone down the temperatures and stop grandstanding. With our conditions, we shall get there.
Norman, how do we mainstream these issues, all right, so that it doesn't appear that it is coming from one side of the divide?
First of all, how did we get to where we are? The whole thing, the fundamental issues is a question of good faith. And the good faith was there from our side. Our principal wrote a letter to the president. The president did not have even the courtesy to reply to that letter. And so we are not where we are by default. It is through a process. And actually there are so many issues that happened behind the scenes that I'm not ready to mention. But I will tell you for a fact that we are dealing with a regime that was not interested, not for a single day, to sit on a table and discuss the issues affecting Kenyans. So we are where we are out of a protracted process that has brought us here. But most significantly is the question that Kenyans are divided today is a fact. But how then has it is actually the first time since the advent of multipartyism that 2 years down the line since an election, the country is still divided down the middle along the same lines that define the electoral process. It means those who assumed power failed. And we said from the court from our coalition's perspective, we have outlived the issues that surrounded the March 4th elections. We said lessons learned, we put a closure to it by that meeting that happened at State House. It was a way of putting a closure to the March 4th process. But we are saying now let's act for prosperity. Let's act by defining how we want the future of this country to be. And that's why we have raised the issues. The 13 issues we raised, they are issues that committees have already been established to try and put together proposals that will be put forward. Some of them will have to go to the legislature for enactment, so that we can be able to address some of the issues that are happening. But we have also identified critical issues that can only be resolved through a referendum. And one thing that Kenyans must be able to know, that yes, we are a God-fearing nation, that yes, we pray, but we must realize when we must act for our prayers to act. We cannot just pray and fail to act. Yes. And so we are saying that in Kenya now it is time for action, and we must action to make this country better. The regime, that one of the issues that we have raised and which we wanted to dialogue with the government was the question of inclusivity. Mm-hmm. That a large constituency of the Kenyan population is feeling isolated, okay, from sharing the national cake. And when you talk about it, they say you are perpetuating hate speech because you are saying the truth. And we have told the regime, let's face the truth, it shall set us free. And so it's not a question of being impossible for the leaders to meet. There was utmost intention from the leadership of the Code Coalition to sit down, and that's why they say let's have a national dialogue that will bring all the players together, so that we put our proposals on the table. You see what you can pick, and there was nothing to lose from a dialogue. If you disagreed with everything we said, you will walk out of the dialogue process.
All right.
And there it ends.
So we now have, calls for a referendum. Before it was calls for national dialogue, which probably didn't work out. But then knowing that we are divided along all kinds of lines, and those factors constant, what happens if the referendum is lost?
Can I take a shot at that?
Yes.
Now, again, with tremendous respect for my brother, he said much has gone into preparing this dialogue thing and referendum. But trust me, I am also a Kenyan who reads a lot around, I know what happens around. What we had, and my brother could be honest with us, is the arrival of a code leader and immediately ultimatums. Unless the engagement at the background was before that day, which I'm not sure, unless he briefs us, it meant that dialogue was predetermined. Today, my brother is saying...
But to be fair, Omingo, the president the next day after Raila came, said yes to dialogue, said these are the issues that we want to discuss.
Correct.
And 2 days later, they backtracked.
No, I think what there was, James, it is the or else thing. The or else. Or else. Or else is an underlying thing. But beside the point, that tells you the preparedness of the other side to have done it. But even when my brother says, yes, their committee is set, those committees are already one-sided. And he has already kind of quickly indicated that there's some issues that require legislation. Which legislation is, say, casting aspersions on membership of committees of legal affairs who are also members of the assembly. As I wish them well, let us walk the path together. That's the only solution for this nation. Some of us lose elections. Let's not pretend. The pain that sits deep within us is courtesy of the elections. That's why IBC is a bad boy today. What am I saying? If we continue thinking about our past elections, trust me, you lose bigger time the coming elections. We must forge forward. I also lost, unfairly so to say, to some strange issues. I won, but I was never declared. But what am I saying? I have moved on. We must be able to move on and put this behind us. Remember somebody said when they had a Westgate attack that this insecurity is because of stolen elections. Really? People have lost lives and you flash back on elections. That even when we pretend, this pain sits pretty with election loss. But we must move on. And I beg my brothers, and I worked with most all of them. The president was my minister when I was in trade. I was then national treasurer of a big party called ODM that time. I know these are great Kenyans who can reason out in the interest of this nation. But there's, first of all, conditions on negotiations should be put aside. Let's say there was a demand of a dialogue, it will never happen. We now want a referendum. Let's tone down both issues and engage on a round table. It is possible. In fact, even CMD as a party, which I sit with all of them, if they so wished. The position I'm giving now is about PDP. But if they wish, we're going to provide a serious platform of engaging.
All right, let's take up some more phone calls. And we have Julius on the line. Julius, good morning, and where are you calling from?
Good morning, how are you?
Very well.
Okay, thank you so much, Marty and Joy. Okay, now I want to contribute on the issue of referendum.
Yes.
Okay, one thing, I want to ask these guys of court, we have a pending by-election in Mathare.
Mathare.
And there are several others that have passed. And they have been sponsoring candidates for the same. And for their disbursement, they're just pegging their allegation on the general election. Why don't they come out clearly and tell us if it's a section of this IBC or is the whole IBC that is rotten? And if IBC is rotten, why don't you just finish the business of engaging this IBC and just look for other avenues? But you cannot say IBC is bad. Still, you are the people bringing candidates. I mean, why double standards? Let's tell Kenyans the truth.
Well, thanks a lot, Julius. We do appreciate that. And I think that question will go to Norman. Do you think CORD is playing double standards? Because if we're seeing, participation in the Mathare by-elections, what do we make out of that, considering the fact that at the moment we have, the CORD that is totally in agreement that they need to disband the IEBC? But before you answer that question, we're going to take Kennedy. Kennedy, where are you calling from?
Tunapiga kutoka data. Sasa ningependa kuchangia mambo mawili matatu. Kwanza ni kuwashukuru wale viongozi, na niseme hivi, mambo kuhusu referendum ukiangalia kwanza na kuchangia kuhusu IBC. Hakuna vile unaweza kusema ya kwamba unataka kuondoa IBC, manake hata ukiondoa wenye wako leo weke wengine, sio malaika utapomeka pale. Ile kitu tunafaa tuangalie ni kwamba ile institution yenyewe, hata kama tutatoa wewe leo tuweke mwingine kesho, ile institution ipo. Kitu ya pili, kuna wakati CORD ilikuwa inaangazia kuhusu mambo ya kwenda Sabasaba na sasa wanaangazia referendum. Kuna wakati niliweza kunena ya kwamba 1990 wakati Sabasaba ilitokezea kwanza, Wakenya wenye wako hai walikuwa wamezaliwa wako na miaka 24. Na ukikombea wenye wako miaka 24 wana represent about 60% ya voting block ya Tika. Watu kama hao ukiwauliza mambo ya Sabasaba hawaelewi. Kwa hivyo ile ningeuliza viongozi wa Kenya saa hizi tusikue tunachangia zile vitu ambazo ziko misplaced priorities. Ile kitu tunapata kuchangia saa hizi, moja ni kama food security alafu unemployment. Manake saa hizi kuna mayouth wengi sana wanamaliza shule, wanamaliza university na hakuna kazi. Kwa hivyo ile tunaweza kuwa tunasema ni kama tunakalia time bomb. Ni kama jana niliona recruitment ama juzi ile ya police. Unapata mambo mengi mabaya yanatendeka, lakini yanatendeka at a high level. So we need to reform institutions. Sio kusema ya kwamba tutoe huyu tuweke huyu. Hata ukitoa Isaac leo, uchukue mtu wa CORD uweke pale, bado Kenya itakuwa ni ile ile. Manake we are prone to corruption. So wale viongozi wako pale, Mingo Magana nakumbuka nilimuona miaka ya 1990 wakati tulikuwa tunachangia mabadiliko katika nchi ya Kenya. Tunafaa tusimame na tupige msasa juu ya kwamba itaenda vipi. Manake tayari.
Asante, thank you so much, Kennedy. And well, there we go. It's still going back to the same issues. People are talking about misplaced priorities at the moment. He says that he thinks we should be looking at issues like food security. And the previous caller is saying CORD is playing double standards. Norman, you think you can, say something about that?
Let me point out that the question of misplaced priorities is neither here nor there. We listed 13 critical issues that we felt are the most urgent issues that we must address. And out of the 13, we have two approaches. As I've said, we are looking at things that we need to take immediate action that will ensure that we relieve the burden and the pains that Kenyans are undergoing. And the second one is we are looking at the long-term issues which we want to fix through a national referendum. And part of the issues that we'll be taking to the referendum is the question of IEBC. And so there is no contradiction in fielding candidates in by-elections in constituencies where courts have declared seats vacant. Actually, if you look, I will implore my brother to look at the decision of the court, the Supreme Court decision in that case of Stephen Karuki versus Wanjoi, the court clearly admonished the entire conduct of IEBC. Now, when we are looking at IEBC, we are not looking at institution per se. We are looking at the acts of omission, the acts of commission committed by individual commissioners. And if you look at the submissions that were filed before the Parliamentary Legal Affairs Committee, each of those have been detailed, the transgressions that were undertaken by the individual commissioners. I'm saying that these individuals conducted the entire process in a manner inconsistent with what the electoral laws provide, with what the Constitution provides. Now, with regard to the immediate issues that are facing Kenyans, we are engaged in a consultative process. That's why we said on Sabasaba that we'll be providing a roadmap, which up to date, the leadership is still consulting, because we want it to be as consultative, as broad as it can be. And actually, I want to assure my brother Mingo Magara here that before we make the final announcement, we will have gotten to his door to give him a note on what we think he can help us achieve. Because it is going to be a broad-based process. The Okoa Kenya movement, we said it's a people's movement to support each other in good and bad times.
Right.
And we have said that the only qualification for you to be a member of Okoa Kenya movement is you agree that there are serious issues facing this country that must be addressed, that you are a concerned Kenyan who want to exercise his sovereignty and the right to resolve these issues.
But Norman, what happens if the referendum, or if Kenyans vote against the the questions that are being asked during the referendum? What happens?
If Kenyans vote against the questions that will be presented in the referendum, then the Kenyans will have spoken. They will have exercised their sovereignty and pronounced themselves on the matters that will have been presented, and the matters must then terminate there, and we move on to the next stage. So the referendum is not a means in an end in itself. It's a means to an end. So if Kenyans make, let me just complete, if Kenyans make a decision on the outcome of the referendum, then the proponents of the referendum questions will have to abide by the wishes of the Kenyans. But most significantly, the Constitution says collect 1 million signatures. We are targeting at collecting up to 5.5 million signatures. And with that, we are very certain on the issues we are going to put to the referendum. We have no doubt in our mind that Kenyans will agree with most of those issues.
So we go.
James, to the extent that issues are part issues about Kenyan Republic, I subscribe. But to the bona fide membership of going the way, I don't think I subscribe to it. I know there are issues which must address. Number two, James, and my sister there, we have the consultation is going on. It's going on in exclusion. Again, remember, he agrees, and all of us agree that Kenya is split down the middle, and the consultations, including committees, have been formed on one side. Now, if that's the path to follow, we'll still be split. And your guess is as good as mine. The end result could be determined when the ballot is done. And again, they have not told us how they're going to do it, who is going to bring in the UN to oversee elections. And they're saying it's not supposed to be done by the IEBC. It worries me. There's a vacuum in here. And you break the constitution, and you want to use the same constitution. I don't know the kind of implanting of what is coming to replace what it is. It worries me still. But finally, let me put it this way, James and my sister there, that we all owe it to this republic. And I'm passionate about this, and I'm sincere about it. The only thing that we must stop doing is creating space for visibility, even when it's not necessary. I am pleading that we can touch on these issues on short term, like he says. In fact, to me, the issue of security and food security and actual national security and the employment is a key thing, which they can fix in the short term. Why don't we start with short term quick fixes first, and then we move on? I am saying nobody's obstinate about this, and I don't believe that anybody can grandstand on an issue that touches the nation, because if you mind well about the people you lead, you must listen to everybody's views. And I doubt that anybody will run away. And if you do run away, because you'll be found. What I'm suggesting we do is we tone down that political heat, rebuild our tourism sector, which is collapsing in the coast. Let us fight the Al-Shabaab and the team that came in from the last regime note, because if they go to Somalia is an issue of Al-Shabaab, it was done in the last regime. Some of the issue of land question that are being put is not today's issue, it's a historical thing. where some of us, in quote, have been involved and we are shouting loudest on the platform out there, it's actually immoral. If I were, in somebody's position, I'd rather even keep quiet. But sometimes we must look for space. I'm persuading that we all stand up to be counted as Kenyans. Let's address the quick fixes first. And I am willing, to the extent of doing a quick fix now, I am ready even yesterday. I'm a member. But on the issue of going to referendum and splitting Kenyans down the middle, I don't think I'm game.
Yes, I think there are certain issues that I must point out. One is that any process must start anywhere. Even if you are starting a process of consultation and engagement, it must start somewhere. People must be tasked by way of a committee to start the process of consultation. Consultation cannot start in a vacuum. So that you say that even if a committee has been put in place to set the platform for consultation, that committee is one-sided. That is not the case. The case is the process starts somewhere, and that is what we have done, that we have set the mechanism for consultation through these committees. Secondly, the question of divisions in this country is a historical question, and that's why on the agenda for national dialogue we said publish the original report of the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission, so that we can face up to our past misdeeds, tell each other the truth, and then march into the future with confidence as Kenyans. And unless we face the question of historical injustices, the song about national unity and cohesion will remain a mirage. So we must put that to bed. We must face it up to the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission. And there is no fear, even if it doesn't matter who participated in what, but put these issues on the table. Let the perpetrators own up to whatever they did. Those who robbed others own up to their misdeeds. Then we can look each other in the eye and say, yes, you did this to me, forgive me, and we move on with a united Kenya. Without that, we will not be able to achieve the dream of a united nation. Okay. But most significantly is the questions about security. And we have raised two pertinent questions, the question of corruption and the question of security. And we picked out item number 6 on our resolutions. And we pointed out clearly that we wanted Safaricom to withdraw from this tender. Because Article 227 of the Kenya Constitution talks about procurement of goods and services in the public sector. And it says it must be done in a manner that is transparent, that is free and fair, and in a manner that promotes competitiveness and the manner that is cost effective. The way that process has been undertaken is not consistent with what the Constitution aspires. And so what are we doing about it? Tomorrow we will be discharging a letter to the Serious Frauds Office in London to ask the unit to undertake investigations, because Vodafone is a critical shareholder in Safaricom. And if we cannot engage nationally, we'll be able to engage other processes that face up to it. Question of security, we have said, yes, we went to Somalia to fight Al-Shabaab, but our homeland is becoming endangered day in, day out. It seems there is something that we are not doing right nationally. Can we be able to restructure the way we are engaging our security sectors? And this is a question that people have failed clearly to own up. Yes. And unless we face up and provide a roadmap. In Afghanistan and Iraq, Obama clearly gave a roadmap to the American people on the engagement of their soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. Can our president also give us a roadmap on our engagement in Somalia so that we can also reorganize our national security in a manner that ensures that our homeland is safe, that our investments are safe, and that we attract investors to sort out the question of unemployment.
All right, thank you very much.
I agree. The success of this referendum question seems to be taking shape now, because I've read in the papers today that now CORD is putting the act together fast. So that is a positive thing, that it means like they were not properly jailed. If they do and succeed, they can spread out to us and then we can buy into it. But also fundamentally, it's critical that even in leadership, it's your virtue for you to say sorry when you are wrong. The problem we have today is pointing fingers. When it burns and you are cooking, you say it's X who cooked. I am saying reasonably, let's own up to issues that we made mistakes, and then let's look a statesman and a real leader. All right. So that we move on. When there are mistakes, let's bend backwards for the sake of Kenya.
Tuachie hapo. James Omingo Magara, Party Leader, PDP.
Thank you.
Norman Magaya, CORD Head Secretariat. Thank you both for making time.